Hey, welcome back to part 2 of our study here. We're looking at Proverbs 3, 1 through 2. This is called Never Forget, and today's little section is called A Father's Request. Now, let's begin by looking at the setting. First, the setting is my son. Again, we'll go back to this idea here where the father is talking to the son, or the student, or the teacher is talking to the student. And that's the setting here. Again, why do we have this? Why is this important? Because it gives us a context by which we're supposed to be listening to this. This is not just bare facts. This is not just the communication of quaint ideas. This is a father speaking to his son. And when that happens, you get the idea that this is a phrase of love. It is a father wanting the best, caring for his son, giving the son what he needs, providing for his son the wisdom and understanding and knowledge that he needs to live his own life. Because one day the father is going to be gone and the son needs to know. And so this is what has been written down for us. So it's the idea of love here. Second thing is the idea of authority. The father to his son. So the father is giving, he has the authority given by God because he's the father. He's the older man. The son is the younger man. He's the elder. And so he has the authority by virtue of age, but also by virtue of the fact that he is the father, the head of the household. And so he has the authority to teach. He has the authority to command his son. And this is what he's doing here. And so this is the idea of love and authority together. Now let's take a look at the substance of the request. His request is, do not forget. That's what he starts off with. Do not forget. Don't forget my teaching. So he got really a negative and then a positive spin on this. Again, you have in the wisdom literature, you have a lot of parallelism where it's just a repetition, same idea in two different ways, or using slightly different meanings. And so here you have a negative and a positive parallelism. And so the first is don't forget. First of all, human forgetfulness. Let's talk about that. Human forgetfulness. We're finite creatures with finite memory storage. So humans will forget. It's just what happens. Sometimes it's just, we're human. We're not perfect, and so we're not infinite. We don't have infinite minds, and therefore we can't store everything. So just by the very creation that God has made, we're finite creatures, right? we're like a computer with a certain size hard drive. You can only store so much on it. That's just how it is. The brain is only going to store so much. And that's wrong. But then you get point number 2, which is also that sin affected forgetfulness. Okay, there's a physical deterioration due to the fall. Now, Adam and Eve, before the fall, maybe they had perfect recall, perfect knowledge. Who knows? You wouldn't have to really forget anything because nothing bad's happening. Unlike today, where we tend to forget things, we tend to block things out because they were traumatic or were hard to deal with. They didn't need that, so maybe they remembered everything. But when the fall came, then everything began to deteriorate. In our minds, humanity is still dealing with the effects. And some people argue that it's getting worse. That's possible. Maybe we're just getting lazier in our use of our memory, but it is what it is. But sin affects our forgetfulness. Sin, just the effects on the body, on the mind, just the disease and all that kind of stuff. Then there's also sin-caused forgetfulness, which is spiritually caused. There's when we sin, it causes forgetfulness. It's pretty interesting. If you look at Galatians 5:17, so turn over Galatians 5:17, and that says, "For the desires of the flesh are against the spirit, and the desires of the spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things you want to do." So you think about that. Some of it is like, there's things I want to do, but then I forget to do. There's things I want to do, and then I choose not to do it. And so that war, that spiritual battle between the flesh and the spirit causes sometimes the forgetfulness. Like, I forgot that I wanted to do that. Now I don't remember. Sometimes we block it out. It's just that war between the flesh and the spirit you know, you lose things sometimes. Because you're not supposed to do that, but in the moment, the heat of the moment, you forget, and then we've all had that experience, and then afterwards you're like, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. I completely forgot, and so that's kind of the sin caused spirit, forgetfulness. But there's also willful rebellion. Willful rebellion will cause us to forget what we should know. Psalm 9:17. If you want to take a look at that. It's Psalm 9:17. That says, "The wicked shall return to Sheol, all the nations that forget God." See, that's what Paul talks about, that all the nations know who God is. Everybody knows who God is, and that they've chosen willfully to forget about him. They'd rather go after stuff and other things, worship other things than God himself, even though they know God. Those who say that they don't know if there is a God, or maybe they go after another God, really that it's willful rebellion against what they know. And so they've rebelled against the truth that they know, and now they've forgotten. And maybe, some people that say they don't believe in God, maybe they just have rebelled so much that they just forgot about him. I think that's the case for most people, that you just forgot who God was. You know him. You know about him. He's made it clear to you. That's what Paul says in Romans 1. But you just have forgotten, and now we need to be reminded of what you already know. So that's sad. So there's this idea of the battlefield of the mind. Satan comes using ideas and words, but the Word of God renews the mind, and it creates a new mind. It restores the mind. And so you have that battlefield between Satan and the flesh and the world and the Spirit of God. Of course, the Spirit's going to win ultimately, but there is that back and forth where you have that struggle with the mind there and that forgetfulness. So when he says do not forget, well, that could be caused because of sin. It could be caused because of willful rebellion, or it just could be because you're human and you're finite and you can't store everything that you would want. But there's also a positive one here too, because after that he says, but let your heart keep my commandments. So there's the positive. Let your heart. The heart is really the center of being here. Whenever you hear the word heart, most of the time it's talking about all of who a person is. So let your heart, let all of who you are, whatever makes you you, let that keep the commandments. Turn over to Proverbs 4:23. Let's turn over to the next chapter, Proverbs 4:23. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. So it's really from the heart flow who you are. So you get that idea there. Matthew 12:33 through 37. That's the idea of the tree. Whatever the tree is, if it's good, it'll bring forth good fruit. If it's bad, it'll bring back bad fruit. That's the idea there too. And then the idea here back in Proverbs chapter 3 is, let your heart keep. Keep means to love them, to pay attention towards them, that you're directed towards that direction, to keep them, to store them up, to really, love them. You keep it like you would keep, your spouse or your significant other. You keep them. And that means you're loving them, that you're keeping them close to you, you're thinking about them, you desire to be with them. That's the idea here, that let your heart keep the commandments. Let them be drawn into you. Let your heart do that. So that is the very first part. That is the Father's request for the Son to do that. And next time we'll look at the Father's promise.